Hello and welcome to episode 1 of the File Card Podcast. My name's Joe and I'm here with my brother Mike.
Hey guys.
So hey, we just want to say thanks for joining us for our first show. And I'll give you a quick rundown of how the show's going to work. So we're going to talk to you guys about a few of the G.I. Joe action figures that we want to highlight each week. And then we'll move on to a spotlight in the community, just somebody out there, either a store, another podcast, Twitter, just somebody we want to highlight and let you guys know about. And then we'll move into our interview. So this week we're going to interview Mike because, well, it's episode 1 and we don't have anybody else to interview. So we're going to start out and let the community get to know Mike. How's that sound, Mike?
I'm looking forward to it. I hope everyone else is.
They probably are now. The question is, will they be glad they listened when they're done?
I'm sure they won't be.
No. So, just to give you guys some insight, this is the second time me and Mike have recorded episode 1 because of a technical error.
I'm sure this episode will be just as good as the first time we recorded it.
All right. Where do you want to start with the action figures, Mike?
Let's go ahead and start with Mainframe. All right. So Mainframe would be one of the jointly owned ones, I suppose, even though you picked him up. So I can kind of claim half ownership of him, I guess.
And he's at your house right now.
Right. Standing. He's displayed beside the Tomahawk. But where did you pick him up and how'd you get him?
Ooh, where did I get him? Oh, yeah. So I picked up Mainframe at Nitro Antiques just outside of Charleston, West Virginia. I was Googling everything I could think of to come up with a place to buy G.I. Joes. And then finally I typed in where to buy G.I. Joes in Charleston, West Virginia. And Nitro's Antiques popped up. I went there. They had a really nice collection there to pick through. And, Mainframe was the one that stood out to me. He's one I've been looking for a little while because he was my first go-to G.I. Joe, my first guy. That was my guy that I played with on a day-to-day basis and went on the adventures. If memory serves me right, Mainframe came out in 86. He didn't even come with any weapons, but he looked cool. And I think one of the other reasons I related to him so much is he was one of the younger looking Joes at that time. Like he didn't have facial hair or anything like that. And on the cartoons, I think he sounded a little younger than some of them. So I related to him in that way.
Yeah, so with those guys coming out in the 80s, a lot of guys had stashes. And for me, I'm with you. Like a lot of those guys weren't relatable as, being 5 and 6 years old, didn't have a stash, right? They seemed more like a father figure.
Right.
I remember you having Mainframe, and like once you moved on, and got interested in another character, perhaps because you were my older brother and liked him, I was kind of drawn to him. So I liked him a lot too. One of the kind of the places he would always be was in the mobile command center at the computer. That swivel computer that went back.
Yeah, it's where he always was when we played with him in the house.
Yeah, so he was there. I really, really liked him. And the other thing is, in the early 90s, late 80s, when, really late 80s when we first got him, there wasn't computers were still kind of, there was a certain shroud of mystery around computers, So for this guy to be, high tech and in computers and in the know, that was very specialized. That was, one of a kind. And so that made him really unique. That, contextually now, people might have a hard time understanding, what made him seem special back then.
Right. Because if you're my 5-year-old daughter's a computer specialist right now. I mean, compared to what he was. But back then it was amazing. And we didn't know what computers were going to be, but even at that young age, you kind of knew that they were going to be important.
Yeah. And he's an awesome action figure in that he comes with this cool looking helmet. He has, he's gray. I don't know. He's just the black gloves. He's a great figure. He's really good in the cartoons. There's an episode with him and Zorana where there's kind of a lot of chemistry, And I know you haven't seen one that in a while, Joe. You should look it up on Amazon and buy it. It's a great episode. It's one of my favorites because in the comic books, the character kind of drives everything. He's one of the guys that in the cartoon, he's a very unique character, and Zorana definitely is. And for those two to kind of come together, it's a neat episode. He's probably one of my top 10 favorites.
He would be in my top 10. And that episode you're talking about, I'm just trying to watch them all in order. So I'm going to get there. And, I can only do about 2 episodes a day because I'm not, I watch on the treadmill while I'm running. I'm the only guy in the gym on the treadmill running, I'm watching the Sunbow series. I can't imagine what the people beside me on the treadmill are thinking.
You need to run more. You need to get a few more episodes in.
I know.
All right, so who do you got for us, Joe?
All right, I got 1983 version 1 Firefly. The man normally or once known as, go ahead, I'll let you tell the story again.
All right, so we missed him. As we've said before, we watched the reruns of the Sunbow series, and for whatever reason, we just missed those episodes for a long time. And we called him Smoke. He got that gray kind of charcoal look to him, and we referred to him as Smoke for a lot of years. And it wasn't until, I don't know, I was probably 9 or 10, and you were well out of G.I. Joes by that point, that I caught an episode one day and realized, oh my gosh, his name's Firefly. So he was Smoke, and I remember using him as a G.I. Joe at times too. Like he was on the Joe team.
I see. I don't really remember him being on the Joe side, but I do always remember him being a ninja because we didn't know what a saboteur was.
For the longest time, I thought he was a ninja. I mean, he kind of looks like a ninja. He could fit as a ninja.
Oh yeah, for a 7 to 10-year-old kid in the 80s, that looks like a ninja to you.
And so. There wasn't a whole lot of ninjas out there either. You were talking, okay, is Snake Eyes a ninja? Isn't he? You know what I mean? That was kind of always in question. And then, at least for you and I. And then, Storm Shadow was obviously a ninja. That was kind of it until the Ninja Force came out, right?
Yeah, for the most part. Well, we had Jinx. She got thrown in there.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know. I mean, I guess for me, I didn't know about Jinx a lot. Just because I do remember watching I do remember watching G.I. Joe the movie, but she didn't stand out for a while. And I also have a belief about Jinx, but we're not reviewing her this episode, so we'll have to wait till
and then we have to be careful calling this a review, because a review is normally done by a professional, and they're explaining every detail of the character, and we're just not that high speed. We're just telling you guys, we're just me and you having a conversation about our memories of these guys when we were kids. Right.
Yeah, no, novice collectors and fans is what we are.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe someday we'll be experts, but we're not yet.
We're a decade away from that.
Yeah.
So one of the things I loved about him, though, was his gun, or his rifle, and that stuck around in our collection as a kids for a long time. I can remember after his knees going out and he couldn't stand anymore, so we would just use him as a dead guy on the battlefield. His rifle being around, it was one of the better ones, and I don't know if you can see it here. I know for a podcast that doesn't really help the people out there, but the stock, it's got that round piece on it, so it grips around their shoulder right at the end there, and that might help you there, Mike, and that I always loved. So this was definitely one of my favorite rifles as a kid growing up. And then it definitely stood out too because of like OD green that it is. There wasn't too many weapons this color out there.
No, a lot of them were gray or black, and that was one of probably the things that I liked most. Those early figures. Each gun was kind of specifically made, for the character. So. It was a really, really good gun, and it was one of those. There were times, Joe, I don't know if you remember this or not, but we used to take turns picking guns, like picking weapons.
Yes.
And that was always like a top 2 or 3 pick, right? That gun was gone early when we were trying to put people into battle.
All right, Mike, who do you got for us next?
Okay, I have probably, in my opinion, one of the most unique G.I. Joes of all time, and that is the Gung Ho version 2. That's Gung Ho in his Marine dress blues, and I recently picked him up on eBay, and good price, a solid figure. One of my favorites as a kid. What I did with him as a kid is I used him as a guard in the Mobile Command Center to guard the jail. You know, because he was in his dress uniform, I never sent him out to battle. I don't know, Joe, what memories you have of him as a kid.
That's it. I mean, that's at least the biggest one is, you know, he guarded whoever was captured in the battle. You know, he stood beside the jail in the Mobile Command Center. I wonder if on the box art for the Mobile Command Center, if that's where he was standing or not. I don't have it up in front of me, but just thinking about it, if maybe that played into us doing that or not.
Yeah, because I think I'm not sure how we acquired Gung Ho, actually. I don't, you know, given the year he came out, I don't know if he was like a hang around on a shelf, you know. Retail industry was a lot different back then, and things, you know, hung around at some of those smaller stores. So I don't know if we picked him up that way, but as a kid, he was very singularly left to guarding. He wasn't allowed to go out on mission. He looked too good to go out on mission. And kind of the disappointing thing about having him is we lost him early. I don't know if he broke. I don't know if we took him somewhere and forgot him, or if we ended up having something outside and left him outside. But we did not have him long, because I remember liking him a lot, and then him going missing, as so many Joes did back in the day.
I want to say we probably got him for Christmas in '88, like when we got the Mobile Command Center, because I remember him quite fondly, or, you know, have vivid memories of him with the base. And I remember being frustrated with trying to have sword battles with him, because his saber's in its sheath and it doesn't actually look like a sword to battle with. So I can remember being frustrated with that. And that might have been part of the reason he was delegated to guard duty too. But then he's gone from memory, really. So I'm assuming he got lost.
Outside, or we took him somewhere and forgot him. I did not use him as Gung Ho the character, though. I just kind of used him as an unnamed soldier. I don't know what you thought about him when you played with him, but
you told me about that earlier, and I was thinking about it. And I think we agreed to do that because we didn't have another Gung Ho, though. But I'm wondering if we used another character as Gung Ho or something like that, so he couldn't be Gung Ho.
Yeah, we would use Mean Dog. Was it Mean Dog?
Wild Card.
Wild Card, who was the Mean Dog driver.
Yes.
Didn't we? I remember substituting him for Gung Ho at times.
So that would make sense. Then we would just imagine him as a soldier, and we would use Wild Card as Gung Ho, because he was as close as we had to the Sunbow version, which came out as a figure in '83.
Yeah, and then I guess it'd been Gung Ho version 3 came out in the early '90s, either was it '92 or '93?
92 or 90, probably '93.
All right, so and he's a solid. He's one of the better figures that year when you look at that line. But we're 5 years before that, so
right. But just so you guys know, I was born in '82 and Mike was born in '84. So a lot of the Joes that we grew up loving, we didn't actually have access to purchasing at the store. We just get lucky over the years and pick some up at yard sales or just hand-me-downs. But a lot of those we longed for.
And I do remember a couple times stumbling upon things like, retail in the 80s, there was a lot of retail stores, right? There were tons of them. A lot of them carried a toy aisle. And I think, and again, this is, a 30-year-old memory, so I'm not sure, but I think sometimes we would stumble upon, a toy or something that had been in that, maybe a small retail shop for 2 or 3, years longer than they expected it to. We live in rural Pennsylvania, so that kind of stuff happened pretty often. Do you have similar memories, Joe?
Yeah, I do. And I think you're spot on with how you're saying that. Like, everything wasn't automated. They couldn't tell you, at this store on this shelf, there's 2 of them. You know what I mean? And have the exact number. It was just, they just put them all out there. When they were kind of gone, they were gone. And then G.I. Joes, they just put out the new ones with the old ones. They didn't clearance sell them, and so that they could get next year's or the next series on the shelf. It didn't work like that back then, at least.
Right. And I'll give you a story. I remember GB's in the mall.
Yes.
Was a store that I remember stumbling upon some old Joes, Alpine specifically.
Really? And you left the store without him. Dang.
And that was probably, he would have been probably 5 years old at that point, or maybe 4 years from like his original make. So I just remember seeing stuff. I think the vehicles might have hung on a little bit longer too.
Yeah, we talked about that too, especially because like the old pamphlets and whatnot that came with the vehicles. Oh, for us, a lot of times had the older Joes that we weren't able to get. I remember that.
And I think now would be a good time to mention, like, if anybody out there knows of anybody that is familiar with what was going on from a retail perspective at that time, has a little bit more insight and can kind of talk about, the distribution of them and what was going on, I think we'd love to have him as a guest.
Yeah, definitely. And that's one of the reasons we started this podcast is for 30 years, me and Mike have been talking to G.I. Joes to each other. And we don't know that much more than we did 30 years ago. So we're hoping we can learn a little bit from you guys. So hoping to meet some people and you guys can just throw some knowledge our way. So guest on the show, we'd love to have you. Or if you can just shoot us something on Twitter, that'd be great. All right. We got any more to check out, Mike?
No other figures. But this week you told me that we had the Mobat as kids.
Yeah.
All right. So when you told me that, I thought, no way, right? I would never have had the Mobat and not remembered it.
Mm-hmm.
But what I didn't realize when we started talking about it is the Mobat is it's an awesome tank, right? It's very traditional military army looking tank, but its proportion, it's very different from anything else made by G.I. Joe's because it's not nearly as proportionate as the other vehicles they made,
Right.
So I realized as you were kind of telling me about it, and Eli actually has the remake from the early 2000s.
Okay.
In his collection, he has the red one, the Cobra one.
Gotcha.
So I start thinking about that one and how it looked and what its size is, and I realized that I discarded it when we were kids as something that went with G.I. Joe's. And I used it with the plastic little green army men's.
Oh, it is the perfect size for them.
Yes.
Yeah, it'd be just a large scale for them. That's awesome.
So that's how I used that. And when you said that, I started thinking about you because you explained it. Don't you remember that green tank with no stickers? Because I guess you didn't put the stickers on it.
No.
So I just was kind of replaying that in my mind as the battles I had with it, and then I started thinking about the top of it and like remembering like, oh my gosh, yes, a G.I. Joe would exactly fit in there. That is it. And so I kind of have had like some regret driving to work, thinking I missed out on all these battles. I could have had no it.
And you had it in the toy box all that time.
Just didn't connect it as something being with Joe's. But I'm guessing maybe you didn't connect it with Joe's because I don't remember you using it a lot. Like when we would battle each other.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, because it wasn't in the cartoons a whole lot, at least the ones I remember. So somehow it just got pushed to the wayside.
Yeah, it wasn't in the cartoons a lot. And I think maybe in those first 2 miniseries they put out, it might have been in it a little bit more. But I really think when you sat beside a Joe and you had other vehicles and other tanks, like it just didn't fit in, proportional.
Right.
So it was easy to kind of cast off, I guess, as a kid. I don't know, but I was very disappointed all week realizing that I had one of the iconic vehicles of G.I. Joe and I didn't use it. But that's it on reviews for the week or a talk, I guess.
All right. You want to move over to our spotlight?
Sounds good.
All right. So our first community spotlight is literally hands down my favorite guy on Twitter. It is Battle Armor Dad, and you can reach him at Battle Armor Dad 1 on Twitter. Now, every day when I get on Twitter, the first thing I do is look to see what he posts, because he posts the absolute best stuff, the most memorable photos from my childhood, at least. If you ever looked at a Sears catalog or a JCPenney's catalog as a kid, you're going to want to follow him. He posts all the photos from the basically the entire toy section from those catalogs is what he posts. And it really just brings back the memories. And, so we just wanted to spotlight him and tell you guys, if you get a chance, definitely want to follow him and look him up.
And not just the catalogs, but he's been putting out pamphlet stuff. He had a Toys R Us flyer not that long ago, a few weeks back. He finds some great stuff. So if you enjoy looking at that old stuff from our childhood, couldn't recommend a better person.
Yeah, and it's not just G.I. Joe's. It's a little bit of everything. So definitely. And we want to say thanks to him because you really put a smile on my face every day.
Yep, keep it up. Thanks, Battle Armor Dad.
All right, Mike. Are you ready for your big interview?
I hope so.
So I put together just a couple, like 27, that I think I probably know the answer to, but I imagine there's a few out there that'll surprise me. So this is just so the other collectors out there can get to know you a little bit. So here we go. Number 1. So what makes G.I. Joe different from other toys you collected as a child?
For me, I think it comes to what the creator of the G.I. Joe comic book had in mind, and that's that he created really good characters, and they were able to the Sunbow cartoon was able to capture those characters that he created and change their personalities maybe slightly, but what you have is you just have really great characters. Each one of them kind of at superhero status in my mind for me, and there was just so many of them. And they were an intricate team of personalities. They had a very worthy opponent in Cobra. So, I don't know. That just kind of all came together. The toys that they put out had so much detail too, almost like little pieces of sculptured art, like mass-produced art, really. So I think kind of those all came together to make it my favorite toy of all time. And I don't know that we'll ever see anything that is as endearing as G.I. Joe was for those of us that grew up in the late 80s and early 90s.
Yeah, I don't know if anything's ever come along since then. So it'll be interesting to see if other generations have their own thing in a few years. All right, next one. What's your earliest memory of G.I. Joe?
My earliest memory is at the first house that you and I lived in as kids. I stayed home with Dad from church, and I had a hit and run. I don't know where that hit and run came from. I don't know what happened to Hit and Run, but I remember knowing his name, having the accessories, and laying on the couch with this Afghan on me. And, it was like a knitted Afghan.
Mm-hmm.
And so my knees were up, and I was making him kind of like scale the holes in it like he was climbing a mountain. So when I look back, that's the very first memory of G.I. Joe I have.
Wow. So you would have been 4 or 5 years old then, right?
I think I'd have been 4, yeah.
Okay. That's awesome. I don't really remember having hit and run that much as a kid, which is a shame.
These things were very inexpensive, and I guess when we lost them, our parents must not have worried too much about where they were. Like if our kids lose a toy, they're usually, 3 times that much now. and I tear the house apart till I find it. But I guess our parents just figured they'd find another one.
All right. Do you have a favorite sub-team growing up? Or as an adult now?
Yeah, probably the Renegades. One of the highlights of the G.I. Joe movie. There are 3 really cool characters. Great. They okay action figures. Some of the remakes have been better than the originals, but overall, I'd say it's the Renegades.
All right. Now, this is a real question, okay? And this might determine how I think about you the rest of your life. Is Storm Shadow a G.I. Joe or a Cobra?
That's a really hard question, and I would have told you.
If you were a real man, no, stop. If you were a real man, this would not be a hard question.
Okay, well, for me, I think of him as a Joe because of that '89 version that you picked up from KB Toys store.
Yeah.
From KB Toys, yeah. But it's funny because now me and Eli watch an episode a night of the cartoon, and he's a Cobra, and he's a really big part of that series. So, I mean,
So now it's changing for you now. That's what's happening?
Is.
Okay. When does he come into the series?
From the very beginning. I'm not sure if he's part of those. I'm pretty sure he might be one of the original. Maybe not in the first miniseries, but I mean he's there when they launched for syndication. I'm sure of, and so the Sunbow series launched for syndication in '85. So he's there from '85 on from those first episodes.
I gotcha. All right. What would be your holy grail of a figure?
My favorite figure of all time would be Shipwreck.
Okay.
But to say that one, I don't think I have a holy grail. I really don't. I don't think that I would find a min on card Shipwreck maybe any higher than a min on card Duke or General Hawk or kind of any of the characters I like.
All right. Let me reword it. If you could only have one Joe in your collection for life, you're only getting to keep one. What is it?
It's Shipwreck. It's actually it's Shipwreck. Okay. So yeah, I mean, I want the Shipwreck tattoo, the one on his forearm. I want to get it on, a little further up so that I could be in public. But, yeah, Shipwreck, no doubt.
He's a good one. There's no doubt about it. All right. Favorite vehicle?
Would the flag count?
I mean, I would think the flag's more of a playset, but I mean, we could just go with other than a figure. It's yours. It's your holy grail.
So for me, the one I want the most right now, and I think when you're in collecting, you probably go through phases. Would you agree with that, Joe?
No, without a doubt.
Right. So right now I'm on the Stinger. I really want a Stinger. I really think the gray Cobra Stinger driver is just an awesome look. Just a cool action figure. And if I could find a really, really good condition Cobra Stinger, I think that's what I'd be after right now.
That's a good one. It's one I've never owned.
No, we had the stun. We had a couple stuns, or the Python Patrol stun as a kid. Yeah. And Eli has a stun now. You know what? I think the Hammer might be second to that. And that was one we had a lot of battles with. And, the Hammer killed a lot of my, Cobras growing up as you were a Joe most of the time. Mm-hmm. But I did like the Hammer a lot.
Yeah, it's a great vehicle. It really, really is. All right. Do you have a favorite year, a favorite line in the series?
I think my favorite would be that 89 line.
That's an excellent one.
No, I'm sorry. Is 89 with Crocmaster?
I can tell you in a second. Because I know he comes before 90.
Because that's Crystal Ball. That's the line I'm thinking of. Crocmaster, Crystal Ball.
No, Crystal Ball was a lot earlier. No, 89 has Python Patrol.
All right, so am I thinking 88 then?
Yeah, you must be. So 88 had, and that's where we had the gold-plated Destro, Road Pig.
Yes.
The greatest version of Storm Shadow ever created.
Yep.
So, I mean, that was mostly, there wasn't a whole lot of Cobras that year.
No, that's the year I'm thinking of. That is my favorite.
Okay, that's also the year they did the Night Force. Or the majority of it, and that has the hit and run in it. So, yeah, you would only been 4 or 5 when you had that hit and run.
And I remember seeing, like, the gold Destro. Very vivid memories of seeing that stuff on the shelf.
Did we have the gold Destro?
Yeah, we did. And that was one of those guys that the O-ring broke early, or we called it rubber band, right?
Mm-hmm.
We always called it the rubber band for a long time. But the rubber band broke, and we just kept his torso. I remember putting it in, like, vehicles and things, just to say that we had a Destro.
All right. When you were playing with the toys as a kid, were you normally on the Joes or the Cobras?
I was always the Cobras. Always. Because you had determined you to be a G.I. Joe. And so to maximize our Christmas and battle abilities, we would, you would tell me to ask for Joes or ask for Cobras, and you would ask for Joes, and then we would battle. Yeah. So I was always a Cobra, and I think that's even with Eli now, my son who's collecting action figures, he's a little bit more drawn to the Cobras. So there's something fun about collecting the bad guys, I think.
Oh, definitely. There definitely is. Do you have an overall collecting strategy?
Well, just getting into it, getting back into it right now. When I go to a store, or if I'm surfing online shopping or auction sites, I'm just kind of looking for the best deal, best available. What do they have that's reasonably priced? And I limit myself to O-rings only. So I'm only looking for O-ring figures. And, maybe in a year or two after I've built up a little bit of a collection, I'll start kind of honing in on some areas and some things that I would, specifically like. But right now I'm just kind of seeing what's out, seeing what I can find kind of best available and, affordably. And that's been my strategy in the last few months.
Okay. It's a pretty good one. So as a kid, I mean, you already told us that Shipwreck was your favorite, hands down. But as a kid, was there one figure that you enjoyed playing with the most?
Because, Shipwreck was I never had him until, the mid-2000s when you bought him and gave him to me. But the guy I think I played with probably the most was Metalhead.
Yes.
I really, really, really liked Metalhead. I had to be a Cobra. He came with, those awesome missile launchers on his hips, a little bit gunfighter-esque, and I used him all the time. So I think that was probably the guy that I used more than anybody when we were doing battles, back and forth, and that would be my guy, right? So, you couldn't win, but he would be the king in the game of chess or whatever for us. And, so Metalhead would be my guy.
So now as a doll collector, are there any figures that stand out to you that didn't impress you as a kid?
I have an appreciation for the non-swivel arm guys. I wouldn't have wanted anything to do with them as a child because they didn't, they didn't have what the other guys did as far as, the ability to move their arms in all the directions. So, the swivel arm guys, being that they were the original and what launched it, those guys interest me.
Are you referring to the 82 series?
Yes.
Okay, I gotcha. Yeah, I don't think...
The non-swivel arm.
Yeah, those were the 82. And then they re-released them in 83 with the swivel arm. So overall, what's your favorite part of collecting?
For me, it's just that having that bonding experience with, you, my brother, and my son, just having that common thing to get out there and do together, and just kind of brings everybody together. It's a common interest, and sharing, all those great memories that you and I have. And what's interesting and what I've enjoyed too is, when we go back and we talk, just about things we remember, things that we experienced. It's always great because you have a perspective on it that I didn't sometimes, and sometimes you even remember things that I forgot, like the Mobat. So I think that would be number one. And number two is going to the shops and finding a deal, and getting into a little back and forth and negotiations and coming out with a good deal. I really enjoy that part of it as well.
You might be the best negotiator or haggler, more of a haggler than a negotiator, but you're one of the better ones I've come across.
Nobody's ever called me back to buy a car after they've sold me one. Nobody's ever like, "Oh, I made a real lot of money on you. Why don't you come back?"
I think one of the other things that was fun to watch was you at D&E's when you were bundling and trying to work out a deal with that guy.
Yeah, the thing that bothered me is I threw out this crazy lowball offer and he said yes. So then I was like, well, now what? I could have got it for less, No,
I think you threw out an extremely fair offer, and he was good enough to accept it. He realized that was good for both of you.
Yeah, it really was. There were, it wasn't, mint loose condition stuff he was selling, and yeah, it was fair. I just, I'm used to the back and forth, and I threw out an offer that was, like you said, it was fair, and he accepted it. But I enjoy doing that stuff.
So, out of all the play sets you had as a kid, including vehicles, which one was your favorite?
I loved the Hammerhead. It doubled at our house as, miniature, so those submarines and stuff were planes, and they were, able to fly. And, I remember getting it thinking, now I can defeat Joe. I can beat his G.I. Joes, you have this thing that has all these missile launchers, and, large cannons, and it's a pretty large vehicle. I can, defeat Joe. So that one is definitely my all-time favorite. And it came with a great figure.
It did.
He was an awesome figure, and maybe at the time underappreciated, but certainly the collector market recognizes how awesome he is. And so I think that's my favorite.
I have fond memories of that one too.
Destroying it with your general.
Well, as you were telling that story, I looked back on it and I felt bad for you because I was thinking, there you were sitting thinking you finally had a chance to win. And then I get the general that year for Christmas. So you were just in worse shape than you'd ever been.
Yeah, there was nothing on the market that could have really came. You would have had to have multiple short hammerheads to compete against the general.
Yeah, and those things weren't cheap even back then. So, do you only collect O-ring G.I. Joes, or do you also collect modern?
No, I can't do the modern. Even though they have put out some stuff that really is true to the original G.I. Joes and the original releases. For me, I need those O-rings, and they need to be the traditional figures for me to get excited and want to collect and spend money on.
So money's no object, right? How would you display your collection? You could build a room however you want. What's it look like?
Oh, it's like a diorama setup with the flag, just offshore of Cobra Island. And you have multiple whales making a beach landing. And, it's an assault on Cobra Island with the Terradrome up there. And just massive amounts of troops and carnage. That would be the ultimate way to display it in my mind.
That was maybe the greatest thing I ever heard right there, which you just described. I truly hope you build that someday. I want to see that. I'm going to dream about that tonight. I'm not going to stop thinking about it.
Oh, I would. If you go back and watch the 86 like season 2 of the Sunbow series?
Mm-hmm. That's where I'm at right now.
Okay. Well, okay, so you're watching it on Amazon, right?
Right.
Okay. They have it broken up a little bit differently. So in all reality, there's really only two seasons. So they released a season in 85 and then they released one in 86.
Okay.
So in 86 they changed the opening, and that's basically what I just described. It's the flag is just offshore and they're doing a beach landing, and the pterodrome's off in the distance, and Serpentor comes out on his air chariot. Do you remember that opening?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, so that's what I'd want to create in diorama form.
That'd be pretty amazing. So, do you collect convention figures, or do you just go with what was released in stores?
No, I like a lot of the convention figures. They're harder to get, and I feel like you need to be strategic when purchasing them, because sometimes those online auctions can get crazy.
Not sometimes, almost all the time now.
Yeah. I guess a lot of us are getting back into it, wanting to capture those memories back. But no, like there's a Dreadnought set. There's a lot of great convention sets. One of my favorites, one of the ones that I really want to pick up, is the Chuckles and the Chuckles and Shipwreck.
Yes.
Special mission. Yeah, that's a good one. So I hope to get that someday. But yeah, I like the convention stuff.
I was cleaning out emails, and I'm talking, I want to say it was like 08, maybe 10. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm sorry. But it was years ago. Me and you were emailing back and forth talking about picking that up. And it's a shame we didn't back then, because the
Probably
price
half
on
the
it.
Price.
Yeah, it was like, it was $25 and we passed on it.
Despicable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely let one go there. So, since you've been out collecting, have you stumbled across anything, or crossed anybody who didn't know the value of what they were trying to sell?
You know, I have not yet. And me and my wife went to Hershey a few weeks ago, and she actually asked me that. She's like, what will you do? Because we were going to hit up some antique stores. She's like, what will you do if you come across somebody selling something and they really don't know what it is? And I had decided that if I did come across somebody, I would offer them about like somewhere around 50 to 60% of what I thought retail was worth. Like I'd say to them, hey, this is way underpriced. Let me offer you this amount. Because I don't know. I don't know. Is that fair? What do you think?
I think that's fair. I mean, especially if you let them know what it's worth and you say, I can pay this for you now, you know. I think that's more than fair. I know you. So if you felt you snuck away with one or cheated them in some way, you would never be able to enjoy that figure or that play set looking at it on the shelf. That would always be in the back of your mind.
Oh, yeah. No, totally. Right. It's not worth it. You would have never. I'd have got a flat tire when I left there anyways, right? Like
right.
Life has a way of evening these things out. But yeah, I'm not gonna. I've made that decision. If I come across something at a yard sale or something, just to offer somebody something fair for it.
All right, Mike, it's getting late. I got just a few more for you. So, what GI Joe is most likely to defect to Cobra?
So this kind of pains me, but when I think about it, I would have to say maybe Shipwreck, just because, you know, there's Shipwreck works in the gray a little bit. You know, there's most of the Joes are very, you know, where they stand at all times, so it kind of all matters, right? They're very heroic, and Shipwreck is heroic too, but you can sense that there's a little bit of two sides to him, you know, and perhaps he's done some things he's not proud of in the past, so. I'd say Shipwreck.
Holy cow. Whew. I have a hard time believing that's your answer, but hey, it's yours.
Who would you say? I'm
going to have to think about that for a minute. And then...
it's not easy, right?
It's not. All right. I'll give you an easy one here, Mike. What's your favorite adult beverage?
Beer.
What's your favorite beer?
Well, you know what? Just like collecting Joes, you know, it kind of transitions. But right now, New England IPA by Sam Adams is my favorite.
That's a good one. All right. Who's a stronger villain, Destro or Cobra Commander?
I would have to say Cobra Commander is all evil all the time. So I'll go with him as being a stronger villain. I mean, he fits the prototype for sure, right? I mean, when you're talking about like good versus evil, very concrete, this is good, this is bad. Cobra Commander's, he's all bad. Destro, you especially in the comics, you see him work with the Joes a little bit more. Couple times in the cartoon as well. So I don't want to say he's a Robin Hood because Destro's certainly not a Robin Hood, but he has his own sort of moral code that he goes by, which makes him maybe a little less evil than Cobra Commander. It's just, I don't know. I guess just that's my perspective anyways.
All right. And last question of the night. What are you on the hunt for to add to your collection right now?
So I've been looking at the Stingers a lot, as we've talked about. Mm-hmm. Another guy that's been really piquing my interest is Big Boa. Have been looking for him, trying to find one complete with all the accessories. Those gloves are hard to find in good shape. So Big Boa's one.
Did we have him as a kid? I ask that because I don't remember having him, but I remember you longing for him, like circling him on the back of the boxes and the brochures.
No, the closest, another Cobra that would have helped me fight you for sure. Which, although he didn't really come with any weapons and he had boxing gloves, so I'm not sure.
And he punched a punching bag.
Yeah, I don't know if he would have helped us in our battle or not.
Maybe he could have helped train the rest of the Cobras so they were better fighters.
Right, I would add stronger troopers. We did have, they used a lot of his, they used his body mold in the gloves during the Street Fighter line. And,
yes.
And so, yeah, I can't think of what that character's name was now, but I had him, and I really think the only reason I wanted him was because it was very obvious they used all the Big Boa kind of mold and changed mm-hmm. his head, but. No, I don't remember ever having him, but definitely always wanted him. So Big Bo is who I'm looking for now.
All right. I'll keep my eye out for him for you too, man. So,
thank you.
But hey, thanks for answering the questions.
All right. That was a lot of fun. I was kind of nervous. I hope that was all right. It was, a little bit less intense than a job interview. So, I guess you're next then, right?
Yeah. Next week, I'll be on the other side, I suppose.
Sounds good.
All right, before we get out of here, guys, we just want to tell you about Joe Motion Video 82. You probably know him from YouTube and Twitter. He puts out some good videos that I've really enjoyed on YouTube. He's trying to raise money to go to Joe Fest right now. He's his health isn't doing the best, and he's been down on his luck. So you'll see a link in our description. If you got a few bucks at the end of the month, and you could help him out, he'd greatly appreciate it. And it'd be a great thing to do is help somebody else out in the Joe community. For me, when I was just getting back into collecting, I was trying to find videos to help incoming collectors or advice to new collectors. And he had a video out there that it's just all good common sense stuff, but it struck a chord with me, and I really appreciated it. So I'll definitely be donating, and hopefully some of you guys out there can help him out too. All right, guys. Thanks for listening to episode number 1, and hopefully we'll see you guys at episode 2.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Good night.